Okay.
That's it. So in this case, it's kind of nice because the geometry is actually creating a lab, which is really pretty cool. So we're going from, and I'm not getting resolution. I've already shaken hands with the distortion, and it won't go back. Even when I make the shift back to the axis of perfection, I ain't budging, buddy. Right? So I'm shifting to Egyptian necklace. And what I feel is a compression, a really substantial compression here where the first rib is coming together into the sternal-manubrial part. Remember this whole junction of the Egyptian necklace? Here's the clavicle, here's the first rib, here's the second rib, which is right at the angle of Louis. Right? The second rib meets in the female space. Right? From the exam, all the ribs, the axes of the ribs converge into the pearl in the middle of the disc where the notochord comes up. And the same thing anteriorly with the sternobry. So our Egyptian necklace, I've got my thumb on. The first rib in the back and the third finger on the first rib in the front. And even though the first rib is depressed in the back, it's jammed and pushed, and it's exerting tremendous leverage into the manubrium and into that clavicular space. So long before we're thinking about whether we have a stuck up or a stuck down rib, we're looking at the unit of function of the Egyptian necklace. So extraordinary amount of strain in the clavicle manubrial area.
So the third finger's on the clavicle?
No, third finger's on first rib.
First rib. And the second finger's on the...
Yeah, my index finger's on the clavicle. Draw a little diagram, if you will, in your little notes section of what that looks like. You know, make the little square for the manubrium, right? At the upper corners is where the clavicles come in, up here. At the middle part of it is just underneath where the clavicles come in or where the first ribs are. And my fourth fingers are on the second ribs, who come in at the seam between the manubrium and the upper sternal segment. Well, what's really sweet about this is that he's treating the anterior component in the dreaming really profoundly. He's decompressing and turning the rib as I just sit and hold the relationship of the Egyptian necklace. And that's great. But we can now, having released it in the front where the first ribs converge with the manubrium, I'm actually more aware of how depressed the rib is in the back where the rib hits the spine, at costovertebral junction. So you can really feel this is a stuck down rib quite profoundly, especially now that this is happy and breathing. So I would suspect, just based on what I'm feeling, I'm doing this isn't part of the lab. I'm going to go back and see what five-pointed star has to say, because I would suspect that he's not. Yeah, that release took this up. That release probably did something with this bow tie. Certainly released this whole unit going up, and the five-pointed star, this left front arm went. Because right now, at least the anterior arms are sweetly balanced. This is kind of waiting for something because his first rib is stuck. So, tender points, okay? Tender points, you can douse the tender point energetically. I'm always aware of it energetically. It feels a bit either like a raised boil energetically or like a little crater energetically. It's either going to have too much energy. If it's acute, if it's chronic, it's going to be a little cold and sunken in, right? But you'll generally find it, and you'll know it's there long before you actually press. Now, the pressure. You're not using the point of your thumb. Repeat after me. My thumbs are a weapon.
My thumbs are a weapon.
Once more, please.
My thumbs are a weapon.
Thank you. So, do we want to use these weapons on this poor, unsuspecting, trusting person?
Absolutely.
Exactly. So we're not palpating with the point of our thumbs, and we're not using our arms to push, right? We're using the pads, the soft pads of our thumbs, and we are holding our arms relaxed and we're leaning with our belly. So we're just coming forward. But now the tender point, lift up a little bit, Walter. The tender point, this muscle here is the trapezius. See that there?
Yep.
So about midway between the neck and where the clavicle is, clavicle being the collarbone, along the anterior, the leading edge of that trapezius belly, you're going to find this spot, which is hot, stringy, and when I press, it's pretty tender.
Are you pressing against the rib there?
Well, I'm not on the rib yet.
Okay.
I'm on the point
Is on the
is in the fascia. Remember that these tender points are not real. They're projected by the spinal cord out into the muscle and fascia based upon information it's getting from the joint. So it's like a holographic projection up there in the room sitting in the air, right? It's like a planetarium thing. We're not treating the tender point, we're treating the thing that's causing the tender point to occur. When we treat the source of the tender point will disappear by itself. The projector will reset itself. Right? You can feel this spot. No, stand back a little bit because I'm shifting position. So the positional release for the low rib, first of all, you're going to stand to find the tender point. Which is there, right?
Were you like one turn out from the neck?
I'm halfway. I just said that. Halfway between the neck and the... Here's the clavicle, here's the neck, here's the tender point. Clavicle's right there. So tender point's right about halfway. Pretty sore, huh? And this is a pretty easy thing. We're going to take his hand. Hello, hand. We're going to bring the arm out about 90 degrees. And we're up about, parallel with the ground. We're just going to kind of float this out here. I'm going to grab him this way, though. Come back to my tender point. And as I do this, I might have to lift a little bit, might have to lower. All the time I'm going, how's that? Is it gone? Yeah. And if they say, well, it's still a little there, they'll say, well, on a scale of 10, if 10 was at its worst, how is it now? And you want to get it down to like a 1 to 2 or 3 maybe. But you could go up, you could go down, you could go a little higher. There's always fine-tuning involved. Now, because of the muscle tension, what I like to do is I like to recruit his brain to actively engage his muscles, which help it recapture the area. So in this case, what I'll have him do is gently pull your elbow to the floor, please. Straight down. Engages the whole of the trap. Relax now. The whole thing just melted. Again, please. Release.
So if you had the arm slightly diagonal up, let's say if that was what took care of the tender point, would you do that, this pulling down from that
I usually do that. Yeah. If this is the position of the release,
Yeah.
yeah, I would
From
usually
that
do that.
position.
Yeah. I've found over the years that I get a much better effect if I get their cooperation. I get them to recruit. Now the brain's become actively involved, and it seems like we've kind of primed the pump for it to reestablish neural integrity.
And you're just holding that tender point. You're not using
I'm monitoring it.
no pressure.
No.
You're just
This is not like trigger point release where you're cranking into it. No. I have less than a postage stamp's worth of contact, and all I'm doing is listening energetically to what's happening to make sure. And sometimes if there's a little shift in a release, it might become tender and I can feel it. And I'll say, does that hurt now? And he'll say, oh yeah, or no. And then if it hurts, yeah, then I have to reposition myself slightly.
So that point's specific to Walter, right?
This point is specific for anybody who has a depressed first rib. This is a mappable, predictable, reproducible, treatable point for anybody that has a first rib that's stuck down.
So it's tender when you go on. You
Yes.
move it around, and that disappears.
Yes. But you're going to discover this for yourself. But yeah, that's the beauty of the counterstrain. And Jones used to hold it for 90 seconds. He was like, hold it for, that's how long it takes the brain to reset. I kind of wait till I see breath and flow. I can start to feel flow coming down through this area, and I can start to feel his rib breathing as he breathes, so I can release it. Okay. Now, Walter, will you sit up and face the pond, please? The cement pond. The other point that I'm going to look at, since he was stuck down on the left, I'm going to look at the fact that he was originally stuck up on the right. And there's a point about halfway, also in the trapezius, but now we're on this little posterior superior part, right behind the clavicle. The mid part of the clavicle, straight back. If you look at where this tender point is, this is about halfway between the neck and the shoulder, about there. That's pretty sore, isn't it?
Yeah, but there's actually a really fierce one in the rhomboid.
Yes, but I'm not going there. See, now, patients will offer this to you, and you go, thank you for sharing, but this is where I'm working right now. Okay?
So you're on the posterior trap now? The posterior
I'm at the
border?
posterior part of the trap, yeah. When we actually do a counter-strain course, you'll all buy the books, and there's a map of the entire body with tender points everywhere. What's that?
The book is awful,
You have to buy the old one, not that one.
because the new one's bad. I mean, it's
What's
It's
that?
hard to
the new
understand
one,
it.
you can't understand the new one.
Well, you don't read it, you just use the maps. You just use the map of where the tender points are.
Look at the picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
Remember, Pammy, you didn't take the class.
I know, but I didn't.
But you didn't take the class.
Yeah, but it's not fair to say I didn't. I got the book
Yeah, but we learned how to navigate
through the book.
with the book in the class.
I was on my way.
I know, no. I'm not. You weren't responsible. Your parent was sick.
Son, are you cheating on it?
No, I'm monitoring. The position for the release here is using his spine. Okay? Now, if this is stuck up, what I'm doing is side bending his head to the left, which is lifting his spine to the stuck rib. And once I start to feel a little bit of breath in the rib, I'm going to rotate his head toward, and I'm going to rest it on my hand. How's that tender point now? How's that tender point now?
Disappearing?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
It's kind of cool. Well, think about what I've done with the spine, right? I've eliminated the struggle between the spine and the rib. I've taken the rib to the elevation of where taken the spine to where the elevation of the rib was, and then I've turned his head to release it. So that's informed the nervous system that it no longer is in this weird strain position, right? And it begins to reestablish neural integrity. You can feel the tension in the posterior trap just melting.
And he's resting on your.
He's totally resting on my hands.
You know what we did in the counter strain?
What's that?
We had this arm.
We use the arm a little bit, yeah.
I was standing on top of the
If
table.
this doesn't resolve, those are for the lower ribs. That wasn't with our leg up. If this doesn't resolve completely, what I will do is I will let go of this spot, and I'll add the lift here to actually relax the trap and release the tissue into the first rib. And I'll add this piece.
Can you use your leg?
You
Yeah.
could.
Yeah, that's.
You could
that's
use
what
your
we-
leg. Jones
Yeah.
Jones was a Gumby.
Then I
He was like
monitored the
6'3" and very long and thin. And he would, like with a table this high, just say, oh, here. And you just reach up and put his leg up there. Kind of amazing to do that.
Wow.
If you have a table that raises and lowers with a pedal, it becomes really easy to do. So that's first rib. Now, from the back, what I'm going to do is just take a listen. Big breath in. Both ribs breathe evenly. I'm going to come into to Egyptian necklace just for a second. It feels really good. We're going to move on.
How you do, Walter?
What?
Got a question.
What?
So, oh, no, it's-
I'm not accepting questions.
That's right, no